They didn't knock. They never did. My ex-husband and his mother stormed into my parents' house like they still owned me. I was in the kitchen trying to get a handle on dinner while my teenage daughter Emma studied in the dining room. The sudden intrusion made my blood boil. "What are you both doing here?" I demanded, putting down a bowl and stepping into the hallway. Mike smirked, his eyes cold. He hadn't changed. "We have unfinished business, Lisa. It's about the past. About money." I could see Emma peeking out from behind the doorframe, concern etched on her face. She knew enough to stay hidden but close. Carol, Mike's mother, crossed her arms. "This is about what's rightfully ours, Lisa." "Rightfully yours?" I shot back. "You have no right to barge in here." Mike stepped closer, his voice low. "You owe us, Lisa. Owe you. For what?" I spat. The nerve of them. Emma stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Mom, do you need me to call Grandpa?" "No, sweetie," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Turning back to Mike, I added, "You need to leave. Now. We have nothing to discuss." Carol's eyes narrowed. "You think you can just walk away from everything without consequences? Think again," I scoffed. "The only consequences are the ones you've brought on yourselves." Mike took another step forward, close enough that I could smell his cologne. "If you won't talk to us willingly, we can take this to court. You can't hide forever, Lisa." I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. "You're not welcome here. Get out before I call the police." Carol sneered. "You're making a mistake, dear." Mike looked at Emma. "This affects you too, Emma. Think about your future." Emma stepped beside me, taking my hand. "My future doesn't include you," she said, her voice stronger than I felt at that moment. Mike's face hardened. "Fine, we'll be back. You can't run from this forever, Lisa." I watched them leave, slamming the door behind them. Emma hugged me, and I felt my resolve solidify. This wasn't over, but I wouldn't let them bully us anymore. "Mom, what did they mean about money?" Emma asked, her eyes brimming with worry. I sighed, leading her back to the dining room. "It's complicated, honey. They're trying to stir up trouble because they're bitter about the divorce, but we'll deal with it, together." Emma sat down, her face a mixture of concern and determination. "You don't have to face them alone, Mom." Her words gave me strength. "I know, sweetie, and I won't. We'll handle whatever they throw at us. We're stronger than they think." We continued with dinner, the tension lingering like a bad taste in the air. But in that moment, within the walls of my parents' house, we were safe. I knew we had a battle ahead, but I also knew we had each other, and that was enough to face whatever came next. The intrusion had stirred up a storm of emotions, and as I cleared the table, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Mike and Carol were out for blood, and I had to be ready for whatever they planned next. But they underestimated the strength that comes from protecting your own. They underestimated me. The house was quiet after the door slammed shut, but a storm brewed inside me. I watched Emma pick at her food, her thoughts clearly elsewhere. "Emma, are you okay?" I asked, settling down across from her. She looked up, gnawing at her lip. "I need to tell you something, Mom. Something about Dad." My stomach tightened. "What's going on, honey?" Emma hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath. "Before you and Dad divorced, I saw him with another woman." The words hung in the air like a dark cloud. My pulse quickened. "What do you mean? When did this happen?" Her eyes welled up with tears. "A few months before everything happened. I saw them together at a cafe. They were holding hands." The room felt like it was closing in on me. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I was scared, Mom. I didn't want to make things worse. I hoped it was just nothing," she whispered, biting her lip. I reached across the table, squeezing her trembling hand. "It's not your fault, Emma. None of this is. Thank you for telling me now." She nodded, relief washing over her face. "What are we going to do, Mom?" "We're going to find the truth and make sure they face the consequences," I said, my voice firmer than I felt. The next few days were tense. I couldn't shake the image of Mike with another woman. I needed answers. One evening, as I sat on the couch with a cup of tea, I called my friend Mandy. She was a part-time investigator, and I trusted her. "Mandy, I need your help," I said as she picked up. "What's going on, Lisa?" Her concerned voice was a small comfort. "Mike was cheating on me before the divorce. I need proof, and if he's hiding anything else, I need to know." There was a pause before she responded. "I'll look into it. But be careful, Lisa. These things can get ugly." I know, but I need to do this for Emma, I replied, glancing at my daughter, who was engrossed in her homework. Emma and I had more conversations over the following week. She remembered small details about the woman she'd seen with Mike, an old friend of mine, Rachel. The betrayal stung deeper, knowing someone I once trusted was involved. One afternoon, I confronted Emma in the living room. Emma, what else do you remember about that woman with your dad? Emma looked up from her book, her eyebrows knit together. She had dark hair, kind of curly. I think it was Rachel. My heart sank. Rachel? Are you sure? Emma nodded slowly. I saw them together more than once, Mom. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, sweetie. You've helped more than you know. I struggled to keep my voice steady. Emma sighed. I wish things were different. We can't change the past, but we can shape our future, I said, wrapping an arm around her. We'll get through this. Mandy soon had news. She'd gathered enough evidence, emails, photos, even financial records, that proved Mike's affair with Rachel. The betrayal was now concrete. As I sifted through the damning evidence, my resolve hardened. This wasn't just about the affair. It was about the lies and the deceit that ripped through our lives. Mike had to face the consequences, and I would make sure he did. Emma and I were in this together, and that gave me strength. The storm was far from over, but now I had a direction, a purpose. We would expose the truth, and Mike would finally see the fallout from his actions. Over the next few days, I took Mandy's gathered evidence and pieced together the timeline of Mike's affair. The betrayal hurt, but knowing the truth fueled my determination. I needed more. So I called up an old friend who worked at a small-town investigative firm. Lisa, it's been a while, said Jerry as we sat in his cluttered office. Photos filled the walls, trophies of solved cases. He offered me a smile, though his eyes were serious. What can I do for you? I need your help, I replied, handing him the folder Mandy had compiled. My ex-husband, Mike. I need every detail you can find on him, and this woman, Rachel. Jerry flipped through the pages, his brows furrowed. You sure about this? Digging up more might be rough. I'm sure. My voice didn't waver, despite the churning in my gut. I need to know everything. I'll get on it, he said. Give me a few days. As I left his office, a sense of both dread and anticipation hung over me. I busied myself at work, trying to remain focused, but my thoughts always drifted back to the revelations. Days later, Jerry called me. We met at a quiet diner, away from prying eyes. He slid a second folder across the table. You might want to sit down for this. Inside were more than just photos and emails. There were financial statements. Mike had been siphoning money from our joint savings for years, funneling it to secret accounts that funded his double life with Rachel. My finger trembled as I sifted through the evidence. He's been meticulous, Jerry said, sipping his coffee, but not enough to cover his tracks completely. I can't believe this, I murmured. Not just the affair, but the money, our savings. Jerry nodded. He's vile. Betraying your trust like this, what do you plan to do? I closed the folder, a fierce determination rising within me. He thinks he can get away with this, but he's about to learn otherwise. Back home, I spread the new evidence across the dining table. Emma joined me, her eyes wide with curiosity and concern. Mom, what did you find out? Turns out your dad was doing more than just cheating, I said, showing her the papers. He was stealing from us, too. Emma looked through the documents, her face a mix of anger and sadness. How could he do this to us? I don't know, honey, I replied, hugging her, but I promise he'll pay for it. Later that night, I called Mandy. I've got more now, enough to confront him, she sighed. Lisa, just be careful. This kind of confrontation can get messy. I know, but I can't let him get away with this. The next day, I arranged a meeting with a family lawyer recommended by Jerry. We discussed the financial evidence, and he assured me we had a solid case. He'll have no choice but to face the consequences, the lawyer said, his voice firm. You've got him cornered. Despite knowing this, a knot of anxiety remained tight in my chest. With the evidence gathered, I now prepared myself for the next step, confronting Mike and Rachel face to face. It was time to reveal what I knew and watch their deceit unravel around them. As I sat on the edge of my bed that night, Emma's quiet presence beside me, I felt a sense of resolve wash over. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming our lives from the shadow of deceit. Together, we'd bring the truth to light, and Mike would finally face the fallout of his actions. With the evidence in hand and a plan forming in my mind, we waited. The storm was about to break, and I braced myself for the confrontation ahead. I sat at the local coffee shop, staring at the door every few seconds. Rachel was late, but I expected nothing less. She liked to make an entrance. I sipped my coffee, the bitterness matching my mood. Finally, she sauntered in, her hair perfectly styled and her makeup impeccable. She spotted me and rushed over with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Lisa, long time no see, how are you?" "Doing well, Rachel. How about you?" I kept my voice neutral, gesturing to the seat across from me. She settled in, crossing her legs and leaning forward slightly. "Oh, keeping busy. Life after divorce, right?" I forced a smile. "Right. Funny how things turn out." Her eyes flickered, a brief flash of something guarded. "Yeah, funny. So, what have you been up to?" "Keeping busy myself," I said, taking another sip. "Emma and I have been adjusting, moving forward. Speaking of moving forward, I heard you ran into Mike recently." Rachel's smile faltered for just a second, but she quickly recovered. "Oh, yeah. Small world, huh?" "Small town, more like," I replied, giving her a pointed look. "You never really know people as well as you think you do." She fumbled slightly with her cup. "What are you implying?" I leaned in, my voice low but firm. "I think you know exactly what I'm implying, Rachel." Her face paled slightly before she plastered on another smile. "Lisa, if you have something to say, just say it." "I know about the affair," I said flatly, watching her reaction closely. "I know everything." Rachel's facade cracked. She set her cup down, her hands trembling. "Lisa, it's not what you think. So, you weren't having an affair with my husband? You weren't helping him steal from me?" I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. She looked around nervously, her voice a whisper now. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Mike said he was leaving you anyway. He said you were done." "And the money? What about that? Was I done with our savings too?" I demanded, feeling the anger rise. "Lisa, please. Mike planned everything. I just went along with it," she stammered, her eyes pleading. "You betrayed me, Rachel." "Not just as a friend, but as a human being," I said, standing up. "And make no mistake, you'll both pay for this." She reached for me, but I stepped back. "Lisa, please, I can help. I can testify against Mike. Just give me a chance." I watched her for a moment, weighing her words. Finally, I nodded. "Fine, you want to make it right? Get me more evidence. Show me you're serious." Rachel looked relieved, nodding quickly. "I will. I promise." I walked out of the coffee shop, my heart pounding. Step 1 was done. Rachel was scared and willing to turn on Mike. I needed every piece of leverage I could get, and having her on my side, even temporarily, was one more card to play. Back home, I found Emma curled up on the couch, reading. She looked up as I came in, concern in her eyes. "How did it go, Mom?" "As expected," I said, sitting next to her. "Rachel's scared. She'll give us more evidence against Mike." Emma nodded, a small smile forming. "Good, he can't keep hurting us." "No, he can't," I agreed, hugging her tightly. "And he won't. We're going to bring him down, Emma. Together." As I held my daughter, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. We had the beginnings of a plan, and the pieces were falling into place. Now we just had to see it through. And Mike, well, his time was running out. A week later, Rachel called me, her voice frantic. "Lisa, I've got more. Meet me at the park near the old oak tree." I agreed and hurried there, the autumn air chilling my resolve into something harder. Rachel was already waiting, clutching an envelope. Her hands were shaking. "Here," she said, thrusting the envelope at me. "This is everything I could find, emails, bank statements, all of it." I opened the envelope, my eyes scanning the documents. It was damning evidence, proof of Mike's betrayal and greed. "Why are you doing this, Rachel?" I asked, still not fully trusting her. She looked down, tears filling her eyes. "I made a mistake, Lisa. A huge mistake. I thought he loved me, but I see now that he was using me. I just want to make things right." I nodded, pocketing the envelope. "All right, but this doesn't absolve you. You still played a part." "I know," she whispered, looking broken. "But please, take him down. He deserves it." "You can count on that," I said, turning to leave. "Stay out of the way. This is between me and Mike now." Back home, I spread the new evidence across the table, my breath catching in my throat. Mandy walked in, her eyes widening at the sight. "That's quite a haul." "Yeah," I said, passing her a stack of emails. "This should prove he was siphoning money for years." Mandy scanned through them, her face hardening. "Lisa, This isn't just about an affair anymore. This is fraud, plain and simple. Exactly, I replied, organizing the papers, and he's going to face the consequences. Are you ready for this? Mandy's voice was cautious but supportive. I nodded. More than ever. The following day, I made copies of everything and met with our family lawyer. He inspected the evidence, nodding approvingly. You've got a solid case, Lisa. Mike won't be able to squirm out of this. Good, I said, leaning back in my chair, because I want him to face every bit of it. Our plan was simple but effective. Use the evidence to confront Mike and Rachel publicly, ensuring they couldn't deny or hide from their actions. Later, as I sat in my office at work, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Emma. Mom, what's the next step? I replied quickly, we confront them at the community fundraiser this weekend. Be ready. My heart raced as the night of the fundraiser approached. Emma and I walked through the crowded event, my mind focused on the plan. Mike and Rachel were there, chatting with guests, oblivious to the storm heading their way. I approached them, my voice loud enough to catch everyone's attention. Enjoying your evening? Because it's about to get a lot more interesting. Mike's face turned ashen, pure rage flickering in his eyes. Lisa, what are you doing? Exposing the truth, I replied, holding out the envelope. We all deserve to know what you've been up to. A murmur spread through the crowd as I detailed Mike's theft and infidelity. Faces turned from curious to disgusted, and whispers grew louder. Rachel looked ready to flee, guilt written all over her face. Lisa, please, don't do this. It's too late for that, I said, my voice unwavering. You both betrayed and stole from me. Now everyone knows. A crowd member called out, Isn't that Mike? What's going on? Mike's facade crumbled and he snarled. You've ruined me, Lisa. I met his glare with steel. No, Mike, you ruined yourself. It felt like a weight had lifted as I walked away, Emma beside me. The truth was out and the fallout had begun. Mike and Rachel had nowhere to hide now. Emma hugged me tightly once we were outside. We're going to be okay, right, Mom? I kissed her forehead, feeling the strength in her embrace. Yes, sweetie, we are. Together, we're going to be just fine. As we headed home, the night sky clear above us, I knew one thing for sure. The future was ours to rebuild, one step at a time. The truth was burning inside me, ready to explode. It was time to face them. I stood in the thick of the crowd at the community fundraiser, feeling the weight of the confrontation ahead. Emma was at my side, her hand squeezing mine in silent support. I caught sight of Mike, flanked by a few colleagues, his charm on full display. Rachel hovered nearby, eyeing me with a mix of fear and defiance. It was now or never. I cleared my throat and stepped forward, raising my voice enough for everyone to hear. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption, but I have something important to share. Heads turned in my direction, and the room fell silent. Mike's eyes narrowed, his smile faltering. Lisa, what are you doing? Enough lies, Mike, I said, holding up the stack of evidence. It's time everyone knows the truth about you and Rachel. A murmur spread through the crowd as I began laying out the details, the affair, the theft, the betrayal. Faces turned from curious to shocked to disgusted. Rachel looked like a deer in headlights, frozen as I revealed their sordid secrets one by one. Mike's been siphoning money from our joint account for years. I said, my voice unwavering. He's been using it to fund his affair with Rachel. Enjoying your evening because it's about to get a lot more interesting, I added, turning to face the two of them fully. The anger in Mike's eyes was unmistakable. Lisa, shut up! But I was far from finished. You betrayed me, lied to me, and stole from our family, I continued, addressing the crowd more than Mike, and it's time to face the consequences. A ripple of gasps and whispers swept through the room. Someone in the crowd shouted, Isn't that Mike? What's going on? Mike lunged forward, trying to snatch the papers from my hands. You've ruined me, Lisa. I stepped back, holding the evidence high. No, Mike, you ruined yourself. Rachel finally found her voice, her tone desperate. I tried to stop him, Lisa. You have to believe me. Believe you? I laughed bitterly. You're just as guilty. You knew exactly what you were doing. The air was thick with tension as the fundraiser organizers pulled me aside, trying to defuse the situation. But the damage was done. The truth was out, and there was no taking it back. As Mike and Rachel stood there, exposed and humiliated, the crowd began to turn against them. Colleagues avoided their gaze, friends whispered behind cupped hands, and some even walked away in disgust. My lawyer, who had been conveniently present, stepped forward, taking the stack of evidence from me. "We'll be in touch, Mike. I suggest you prepare yourself." Mike glared at me one last time before storming out, Rachel trailing after him. The room gradually returned to a semblance of normalcy, though the tension lingered like a bad odor. Emma hugged me tightly, her eyes shining with pride. "We did it, Mom. We really did it." I kissed the top of her head, feeling a mix of relief and exhaustion. Yes, we did. And now we can start to move on. We left the event, the cold night air feeling like a fresh start. As we walked hand in hand, I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but it would be ours to walk, free from the shadows of deceit. Back at the house, as Emma drifted off to sleep, I sat by the window, looking out into the darkness. The fight was far from over, but for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of peace. The truth was out, and the healing could finally begin. Together, Emma and I would rebuild our lives, one step at a time. The fallout began almost immediately. Mike's phone calls went unanswered as colleagues, friends, and even family members turned their backs. His once flawless reputation lay in ruins. At work, the whispers grew louder until they reached the ears of his superiors. I received a call from an old friend who worked in Mike's company, the tone hushed and serious. "Lisa, you won't believe it. They're launching an internal investigation into Mike's finances. He might lose his job." "Good," I replied coldly. "He deserves everything that's coming to him." Meanwhile, Rachel's world was unraveling too. Her husband, blindsided by the affair and fraud, filed for divorce immediately. She showed up at my doorstep one evening, eyes red and swollen. She clutched a piece of paper in her hand. "Lisa, please," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "I need to talk to you." I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe. "What do you want, Rachel?" She took a deep breath, shoving the paper toward me. "It's the divorce papers. I don't know what to do." "That's not my problem, Rachel. You made your bed," I said firmly, my sympathy buried under layers of betrayal. "Please, I didn't know it would end like this," she cried, her tears falling freely. "I lost everything." "You didn't think about that when you were stealing from me, did you?" I snapped. "You should leave." "My life is falling apart, Lisa," she screamed, desperation etched on her face. "I'm losing everything." "And you think I should care? You brought this on yourself," I replied, shutting the door on her pleading eyes. The next few days brought more chaos for Mike. He was suspended pending the investigation, and the bank froze his accounts. Every time he tried to reach out to me, I ignored his calls. Emma and I were determined to move forward. "Mom, you look tired. Are you okay?" Emma asked one evening as we sat on the couch, the TV playing softly in the background. "I'm fine, sweetie," I said, squeezing her hand. "Just thinking about how everything is changing." Emma's face grew serious. "Do we have to see Dad again?" I shook my head. "Not if we don't want to. We have the power to decide what's best for us." She nodded, her expression softer. "Good. I don't want to see him." "I understand," I replied, pulling her into a hug. "We're going to be all right, Emma." The next afternoon, as I was organizing the documents to finalize the legal battles, Mike showed up at my office. He looked disheveled and desperate. "Lisa, we need to talk," he said, barging in past my protests. "What do you want, Mike?" I said, my patience wearing thin. "You've ruined me, Lisa." "Everything's falling apart," he hissed, eyes filled with a mixture of anger and fear. "No, Mike, you ruined yourself," I shot back. "You lied, cheated, and stole. Did you expect no consequences?" He sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. "I lost my job. The investigation's tearing me apart. Please, help me fix this." I stared at him, incredulous. "Help you? You're unbelievable. After everything you've done, you expect me to help you?" "Please, Lisa." "For Emma's sake," he begged, looking up with red-rimmed eyes. "Don't bring her into this. She's suffered enough because of you," I said coldly. "Get out of my office, Mike. Face your consequences as like an adult." His shoulders sagged as he walked out, the reality of his actions weighing him down. I watched him leave, my heart steady, knowing I had made the right choice. As the days turned into weeks, the repercussions of Mike's actions unraveled further. Rachel moved out of town, trying to escape the scandal. Mike's life continued to crumble, each new day stripping away a piece of his former self. Through it all, Emma and I found our footing in our new normal, taking it day by day. We weren't just surviving, we were starting to thrive. and that was the best revenge of all. The sun shone brightly as Emma and I unpacked the last of the boxes in our new home. It was a modest house in a quieter part of town, but it felt like a fresh start. "Mom, where should I put these books?" Emma asked, holding up a stack. "Let's set up a small bookshelf in the living room," I suggested, smiling at her enthusiasm. We worked together, arranging our things with care. Each item found its place, and with each box emptied, the house started to feel more like home. In the early evening, as we relaxed on the couch, Emma turned to me. "Do you think Dad will ever get his life together?" I sighed, thinking of the wreckage Mike had made of his own life. "I don't know, Emma. That's up to him now. But we don't have to worry about that anymore." She nodded, her face serene. "I'm glad we're here, Mom. It feels right." "Me too, sweetie," I said, hugging her close. "We're starting a new chapter." To celebrate our new beginning, we decided to have a small dinner party. I invited Mandy and a few close friends. They came with warm smiles and housewarming gifts, their presence filling the house with laughter and joy. Mandy pulled me aside later in the evening, her eyes twinkling. "You've come a long way, Lisa. I'm proud of you." "Thanks, Mandy," I said, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. "I couldn't have done it without you." As the night wound down and our guests left, Emma and I sat on the porch, gazing at the stars. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "We're going to be okay, right, Mom?" "Yes, we are, sweetie," together, I assured her, kissing her forehead. The days turned into weeks, and we settled into our new routine. Emma thrived in her new school, with Swaf making friends and engaging in activities she enjoyed. I found solace in my work and the rhythm of our new life. One afternoon, I received a letter from Mike. He had lost everything, his job, his home, and most of his friends. But the tone of the letter was different. It wasn't angry or blaming. It was reflective, almost remorseful. "Lisa, I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I realize the depth of my mistakes. I'm sorry for the pain I caused you and Emma. I hope you both find the happiness you deserve." I read the letter twice, feeling a mix of emotions. I decided not to respond. Mike's journey was his own now, and I needed to focus on ours. "Morn, everything okay?" Emma asked, noticing my thoughtful expression. "Yeah," I said, smiling, "just thinking about how far we've come." "Me too," she said, her eyes bright. "I can't wait to see what's next." Life continued, filled with small, meaningful moments that stitched our days together. Emma and I grew stronger, not just as individuals, but as a family unit. We learned to cherish the quiet joy of everyday life, free from the shadow of deceit and betrayal. One Saturday morning, Emma and I decided to plant a garden in the backyard. As we dug into the soil, planting seeds for the future, we laughed and talked about our dreams. "One day this garden will be full of flowers," Emma said, her eyes shining with hope. "Yes, it will," I agreed, feeling the richness of the soil in my hands, just like our lives. As the sun set, casting a golden hue over our new home, I felt a deep sense of contentment. The journey had been hard, filled with pain and betrayal, but we had come out stronger. The future stretched before us, a path we would walk together step by step, one day at a time. And for the first time in a long while, I knew we would be all right.